The cleansing of the temple in the writings of the early church fathers. Having examined in an earlier video 5 principles which guided the early church fathers in their interpretation of the Gospels, with the cleansing of the temple primarily in mind, the fathers' actual writings on the cleansing of the temple will now be considered. 5 striking features are noted in their commentaries, each of which will be examined in turn. They are: A. The early church fathers interpreted the gospel accounts describing the cleansing of the temple by Jesus in a literal historical manner. B. The fathers believed the gospels record 2 different times when Jesus cleansed the temple. C. The fathers believed that the religious authorities and the money changers were to blame. D. The fathers wrote that the coins that the money changers exchanged within the temple were copper or token coins. And E. The fathers were well aware, as were all people of the general public, of the difference between genuine and counterfeit coins, and in addition were further aware of the command attributed to Jesus when he advocated, "Be ye good money changers." Points D and E above are of considerable interest for this video, and it is proposed hold the key as to why Jesus undertook such important actions in his Father's house. They also may have a vital contribution to make to an economic world today so much dominated by the use of token money. Before, however, presenting their commentaries, 2 of the 4 Gospel accounts describing Jesus' actions in the temple will be shown on the screen. The first is that found in the Gospel of St. John, which, as will be seen later in the Father's writings, describes the first of 2 cleansings of the temple by Jesus. The second is that found in the Gospel of St. Mark, which, according to the Fathers, describes a different event that took place just after Jesus entered Jerusalem at the beginning of what is known as Holy Week, culminating with his subsequent death and resurrection. As the accounts found in St. Matthew and St. Luke's Gospels recording the same event in Holy Week are shorter in detail than that of St. Mark, they are for this reason omitted. Let us now consider these 5 points in turn. A. The Fathers read the Gospel accounts of the cleansing of the temple in a literal historical manner. The cleansing of the temple was considered by the early church fathers as a momentous historical event. Saint Jerome considered this act as the most wonderful miracle wrought by our Lord. The fathers in general assumed that the events recorded in the Gospels are historical with regard to all the details they present. The cleansing was therefore understood to be a major disturbance in which the whole court of the Gentiles was cleared, and not just a small part. The buyers and sellers, the money changers, and the animals were all driven out. This was an event of great significance. Please use the pause button as some relevant extracts in support of this first point are now shown on the screen. St. Cyril of Alexandria, St. Augustine. St. Augustine again. Notice how he compares the driving out of the buyers and sellers from the temple with that of driving out demons. St. Bede also interprets the cleansing of the temple literally. St. Jerome believes that this was Jesus' most wonderful miracle, that one man was able by the blows of one scourge to cast out so great a multitude. St. Gregory, and finally Tatian in his Diatessaron. Point B. The Fathers believed the Gospels record 2 different times when Jesus cleansed the temple. Several of the early church fathers testify that the Gospels record two different cleansings of the temple. St. Thomas Aquinas, who later in the 13th century examined the commentaries of the fathers on the four Gospels in his Catena Aurea, wrote also of two such cleansings. The first cleansing happened at the beginning of Jesus' ministry and is recorded in St. John's Gospel. The second cleansing took place at the end and is recorded in the three synoptic Gospels. This point is very significant and appears to indicate that Jesus' entire ministry from beginning to end was bound up with the cleansing of the temple. Please use the pause button, as extracts from the Father's writings in support of this second point are now shown on the screen. St. Augustine, St. John Chrysostom, St. Thomas Aquinas citing St. Augustine, St. John Chrysostom, and St. Theophilus of Antioch. The significant excerpt of Eusebius, and finally St. Thomas Aquinas himself. Point C. The Fathers believed that the religious authorities and the money changers were to blame. The early Church Fathers believed that dishonest trading and monetary practice was conducted within the temple. Some of the Fathers singled out the religious authorities for blame. St. Jerome mentions as responsible the priests of the temple who appointed colubistei, money changers, in order to circumvent the law regarding usury. The priests also, according to St. Jerome, resold animals which had already been deemed for sacrifice. The money changers received special admonition from the Fathers for their part in seeking to make profit from the Lord's money. Please use the pause button, as some excerpts from the Fathers' writings are now shown on the screen in support of this, the third point. St. Ambrose. St. Ambrose again. And a third excerpt from St. Ambrose. Notice how he identified the coins of the money changers as that of copper money, or ace in the original Latin. The significance of this will be referred to later. St. Jerome. In this excerpt, St. Jerome mentions two particular forms of unjust behaviour in the holy place, both of which were made possible by the operations of the money changers, or colubistei, in the temple. The first is that the religious authorities resold animals already deemed for sacrifice in the temple, and the second source of unjust income relates to bribes or payments in kind, which the money changers received for offering such loans. The loans, the bills or the bonds that St. Jerome refers to in this excerpt may be connected with the bills or bonds which Jesus referred to in the parable of the unjust steward in St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 16. It may also be debts of this kind which, having accumulated to very high levels, were burnt by the Jewish rebels at the beginning of the Roman-Jewish War in 66 to 70 AD. The significance of the sentence in St. Jerome's excerpt when he writes, "Instead of bankers they appointed colubistei," a word for which the Latin has no equivalent, will be addressed in the next point. This is a very significant sentence of St. Jerome. St. Bede observes the same scheme concerning the reselling of animals already set aside for sacrifice. And finally, St. Irenaeus wrote that Jesus reproved those who were putting his house to improper use. Point D. What may be the most important point. The Fathers wrote that the coins that the money changers exchanged within the temple were copper or token coins. From the excerpts that will be cited from the Fathers' writings, a vital clue is offered as to the reason for Jesus' actions in the holy place. Evidence will be found from the writings of Origen, St. Theophilus, St. Cyril of Alexandria, St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, St. Jerome and St. Bede, to support the contention that the money changers of the Jerusalem temple were offering in exchange for the various currencies that were brought in by the pilgrim Jew from outside a form of copper or token coinage. Origen's testimony in this regard is most striking, owing to its relatively early date, and for the emphasis he places on such spurious money, small change, cheap, worthless coinage, and money which was their own and was worth nothing. We today, who live in a world dominated by the use of token money, might not fully appreciate the significance of such novel actions in the temple. Quite simply, in the mind of Jesus, the exchange of token money in the temple for coins of real intrinsic worth brought in by the Jewish pilgrims, predominantly silver coins, was a subtle form of theft from God in the temple treasury. And a brief note, please use the pause button. Now some excerpts from the Father's writings in support of this very important point D. First, Origen of Alexandria. In his commentary on the cleansing of the temple in chapter 2 of St. John's Gospel, Origen made several important references which appear to indicate the precise coinage which the money changers were offering in the temple of Jerusalem. Such references are among the strongest source of evidence from the writings of the early church fathers, pointing to the fact that the money changers' coinage was merely that of base or copper metal and of therefore possessing only token value. Several excerpts from Origen's commentary on St. John's Gospel will be given as evidence for this claim. These will be shown in turn on the screen. Please use the pause button as required. In another video entitled The Cleansing of the Temple and Origen's Commentary on the Money Changers' Coinage in the Temple, uploaded onto YouTube, a more detailed examination of Origen's writings in this regard are presented. The first excerpt from Origen. Notice his description of the money changers' coinage as the small coin of the changers, which in the original Greek of Origen is actually small copper coinage. And the second excerpt, notice the money changers' coinage described as so little is it worth, and which was their very own issue. And Origen's third and most compelling excerpt, when he describes the money changers as having spurious money and giving pence and small change, cheap, worthless coinage to all who come to them, and robbing them of their better part to return to them what is worth nothing. Saint Theophilus. St. Thomas Aquinas wrote, Theophilus of Antioch calls money changers changes of a particular sort of money, literally coins, for the word means a small brass coin, or literally a coin of small copper. Saint Cyril of Alexandria identifies the coinage of the money changers with that of the obol. The obol is the English transliteration of a Greek word obolos, typically used in Egypt and throughout the Middle East in the early centuries AD to designate the Roman copper coin known as an as, or simply to designate a copper coin of negligible value. St. Jerome, St. Augustine and St. Bede, all writing in Latin, refer to the money changers' coinage as that of ace, which is literally translated copper coinage. Please use the pause button. St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, St. Bede, St. Jerome. In his commentary on St. Matthew's Gospel, St. Jerome significantly states that there is no precise Latin equivalent for the Greek term kolubistes used in the Gospels for the money changer of the temple. The reason for this, it is proposed, is simply that the function or activity of the money changer was unique to the temple in Jerusalem and was unknown in Roman banking and monetary practice. For St. Jerome's relevant excerpt, please use the pause button as it is now shown on the screen. When St. Jerome wrote that they appointed colubiste, a word for which the Latin has no equivalent, he seems to imply that the Greek term describes a function unknown in Roman banking practice. This is emphasized when he writes that, instead of bankers, they appointed colubiste, thus implying that the latter were not functioning as typical bankers or everyday money changers of the 1st century AD, but rather were functioning in a unique capacity and offering a monetary service peculiar only to the temple, a service which, it is proposed, Jesus condemned within his Father's house. This service involved the exchange of token coinage for coins of real intrinsic value, something not done by any other money changer at that time. When St. Jerome was writing in the 4th century, the money changers of the temple ceased to exist as the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. The introduction of token money, which dominates our world today, really began with the establishment of the Bank of England in 1694. Several economists have noted this point. Point E. The Fathers were well aware of the difference between genuine and counterfeit coins, and in addition were further aware of the command attributed to Jesus when he advocated, "Be ye good money changers." It may be difficult for readers today who live in the monetary world of the 21st century, governed by the use of token money, to appreciate the significance of the Fathers' constant reference in their writings to a. the need to distinguish between true and false coinage, and b. the command attributed to Jesus, which the apostles apparently received, to become good money changers. Although the Fathers applied these directives allegorically, particularly to the spiritual life of the faithful, such popular usage indicates a well-known feature of the everyday monetary life and world of the early Church. Only coins that had true value, containing the precious metal content, that is, copper, silver, or gold, corresponding to their stated kind or classification, were acceptable in everyday commercial transactions. Token coinage would have been completely unacceptable. Several examples from the Fathers' writings citing such monetary directives may be given. Please use the pause button. St. John Cassian. St. John Cassian again. And again St. John Cassian. Notice in this third excerpt his reference to that which is genuine being from God and that which is spurious being from the devil. St. Ignatius of Antioch and the two kinds of coins, one from God and the other from the world. St. Clement of Alexandria. St. Irenaeus. St. Clement of Rome. And St. Clement of Rome again, who wrote that with good reason said our Master, "Be ye good money changers." And finally Eusebius, who wrote that in a vision he received what agrees with the apostolic word, "Be skillful money changers." These 5 features noted in the writings of the early Church Fathers reveal how important the cleansing of the temple is, not only for the life and ministry of Jesus himself, but also for the life and ministry of every Christian today.